He's like a very famous Indian who has built a company from zero.
We started on August 11th of 2008, a month before Lehman Brothers tanked. I think RK was the first time I learned that politics and having a godfather matters. Life is just not only about, you, it is also about things around you and some of that. Call KGP a land of opportunities, right? Because if you wanted to do something in Kharagpur, you could do it. It wasn't a joint family. I would, they were all small nuclear families, but I would stay with.
Hello, friends. I'm here today with Aneesh Reddy. He's one of the most famous KGPN who has done a lot of work starting with KGP days. So he started with like starting eCell. So first of all, Anish, do you want to say hi to the audience?
Hey, hi everyone. Thanks, Atal, for having me here.
And so Anish, what happened? Like, how did you start your startup? Like, when was it started?
We ended up starting in 2008, Atal, August of 2008, just a month before Lehman Brothers tanked and the massive recession in 2008 happened. But yeah, it was an interesting time, and I do believe that recessions are great times to start up. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was a good time. Yeah.
And how much money did you raise overall?
Wow. We've raised just a little under 300 million over the years. About 100 million has gone into the business. 200 million has been secondaries. So we've had at least two rounds of changes on the cap table. So it's been a fairly liquid stock,
A- And
employees,
how big is your
everyone has made
company?
money. We're about 1,000 people now.
1,000 people, 300 million raise, and you look at the world from a very different angle. And you said, what are the four squares through which you look at it?
I think, life has been kind. It has taught me a lot of stuff over the years. It has
Mhm,
given me a lot to be happy about and a lot to deal
mhm,
with as well. As Sri Aurobindo says that, pain is the hammer of God,
mhm.
right? So, and I think it's the hard experiences that teach you more than the nice experiences. So over
Mhm.
years, I've kind of evolved into this philosophy of looking at life as a 4x4, where there's personal, which is your physical and mental health. There's professional, which is, the startup, money, fame, blah, 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 all that side. Then there's friends and family and relationships, right? So, and then there's the fourth part, which is spiritual community, right? So, and I tend to, every quarter sit down once and say, how am I doing on all four of these? And that's made me, I think, at least personally, more happy as an individual than the startup founder I was, where I would just crazily look at valuation and, how's the startup doing and all that stuff. Right? So,
Wow. Thank you so much, Anish, for sharing your story. We have gone into a depth about each of these parts. So thank you so much for doing that. And to our audience, looking forward to hearing your feedback on this story. So thank you so much.
thanks, Errol.
So actually, let's just get started on this. Anish, like I think I just know you from KGP. One time you visited, you came to give a talk, and I was like very inspired. And I followed you, and I have a lot of stories that I have learned about you being just so resilient in managing to build this company out of KGP, working through the incubator and all. So how about like, before you even get into IIT, let's start with your early life. Like where were you born and brought up, and how was your early life like?
Atul, first, thanks for having me join today. My pleasure here. Early life. So I basically come from a family of doctors. I'm really the only non-doctor in the family in that sense. Both my parents are doctors. My brother's a doctor. My sister-in-law is a doctor. Yeah. So early life, born brought up in Hyderabad. Both parents are doctors. Interestingly, like most, I think people of that generation, they had to make money to send home. So both my parents used to work in Iran from
Iran.
1975. Yeah, yeah, 1975 is when my dad moved to Iran.
It's
They
very
came
interesting.
back
So
in
you're
nine.
saying your parents are doctors, and doctors from India moved to Iran because Iran you could make more money at that time.
Yeah, this was before the Shah of Persia, when the Shah of Persia used to run Iran, right? This was
Uh,
so my dad moved there in 75. My mom moved there, I think, in 78
uh-huh.
after they got married, and they both came back in 94, right?
Okay,
So
they came
for
back
a
in 94.
good 16, 18 years they were there. So the good piece was so both me and my brother were brought up between my mom's dad and her sisters. So
Hmm.
she had like five sisters. So so we had so that way, I had a pretty so every 2, 3 years I would stay with a different aunt, and the good part of it was, we had a lot of I'm very thick with a lot of my cousins.
Hmm.
So it's like a big combined family and
Uh-huh.
stuff like that. The second thing I think that worked well for me was I didn't have the pampering that usual staying with parents gives you,
Uh-huh.
right? So well,
Had
I
to
think
figure
by
out
the
on
time
your
they
own.
came back to India, yeah, by the time they came back to India, I was in my seventh grade, and
Uh-huh.
my brother was in his 10th, so it was, so they came back saying, if you don't come back now, when will we come back, right? So, but
Mm.
they had to do what they had to do, right? So my dad's dad was in deep debt. So I think the first 5 years of all of the earnings they had in Iran just went off to pay off his dad, get his sister married, get his brother educated. Very typical elder son story in India,
Yeah,
of that
yeah.
generation.
Yeah, it's very
So
interesting to me that, I mean, I think when I look at a lot of people who moved from India, like, being NRIs, a lot of them go to US. Like, I think even if we talk about some of the KGP alumni from 1960s, 70s, they came to US. But I mean, I just never thought like, Iran was a destination where people like who are very qualified, like doctors, used to go. This just tells about like history of Iran in a way that it used to attract a lot of great talent from all around the world too.
and they used to get paid very well. Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
my dad telling me that his first salary in 1975 was about 8, 9 thousand rupees. And my first boss in ITC telling me that when he joined ITC in 1984, his first salary was 350 rupees, and he was also from IIT Kanpur, and
Uh-huh.
so it was, you could just make the difference out, right? Like 8,000
Yeah,
rupees versus, and ITC was
350.
always a terrific payer, one of
Mhm,
the best payers on campus, anyways,
mhm,
for many years. So yeah, you could make like serious amounts of money in a place like
mhm.
Iran.
Got it. So it was
Back then,
common. Yeah.
now I'm pretty sure it is. In fact, a lot of his batchmates from he went to Osmania, which is the best
Oh,
medical college
uh,
in Andhra, Telangana. So a lot of his
mm.
batchmates also went to Iran with him. So it was kind of like the place to go for doctors from Hyde. So
Wow, very interesting. So, okay, awesome. So your family, your parents were there. They came back in 1994, I think you said, and then uh, you grew up like with your cousins and big family, joint family. So it shaped you more of like you
it
gotta
wasn't
stick
a
on
it
your.
wasn't a
Mhm.
it wasn't a joint family. I would, they were all small nuclear families, but I would stay with different folks, right? So you just
Mm.
it was a little bit of that. Yeah.
Got it.
You would
So
change houses every 2, 3 years,
yeah. Mm.
stuff like that.
So
Yeah.
how did this one kid is like, hey, I want to go to IIT instead of like everyone else choosing to go become a doctor? Like how did that happen?
So the good piece there was, I have never been a kid with a lot of patience,
Hmm.
right? So and I think my dad sat me down in my ninth grade and said, look, like all kids, I wanted to be kids usually want to do what their parents do in most
Hmm.
cases, right? So I wanted to be a doctor again, and in there, by the time they came back from Iran, we were like, I had a very rich childhood. When
Hmm.
I didn't see all the troubles that my parents saw
Hmm.
and all of that, because they had made a ton of money by the time,
Yeah.
so we were pretty well to do, right? I was a Domino's brought up kid from my
Hmm.
seventh grade.
Hmm.
Every day there would be a Domino's pizza if I wanted, so
Yeah.
it was, yeah. So he sat me down in my ninth and
Uh,
basically said, look, as a doctor you need a lot of patience,
uh.
and I don't think, and I would agree, I was not this kid with a lot of patience. So he said, look, do you want to, and I was pretty good at maths as well as bio in school.
Uh-huh.
So he said, look, I think probably you should try something else. Probably you'll be
Uh,
happier as something else. So I said, okay, good. And so one of my brother's friends from school
uh-huh.
had just made it to IIT Madras at that point in time, or was prepping for IIT at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
Very close friend,
Mm-hmm.
and so the option was saying, look, do you want to explore engineering and IIT hence, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that conversation came about kind of that way, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a very, very wise decision or suggestion on his part,
Uh-huh.
saying, look, probably this is better for you,
Very cool.
so.
And then how did IIT KGP came up? I mean, I know a lot of people from Andhra actually go across the world, so across the IIT system. So why you chose IIT KGP, or maybe like not in Madras or somewhere?
I think you brought a very interesting point up.
Uh,
We were about 100 of us who went to this place called Ramaya. Ramaya is like
Ramaya.
the Kota.
Uh,
Ramaya is the Kota, Bansal's equivalent of Kota in
uh,
Hyderabad, right?
uh,
So they would take 110 people
mm,
every year, and out of the 110, 100 would make it, right? So
mm,
it was like the place to go.
mm,
And I think out of the 100, only four people landed in Kharagpur.
hmm.
Not
All
even
of them
four,
made it
probably
to
three people.
IIT. All the 100 made it to IIT?
Yeah. 100 made it to IIT
Wow.
out of the 110.
Uh-huh.
But, three people landed in Kharagpur. Everyone else went to Madras.
Uh-huh.
Some went to Bombay. Some went to Kanpur.
So what was that
But,
story of these
so
three?
the deal was always that, from Ramaya, you would go to Madras, right?
Hmm.
And that was how even I wanted it to be, right? Like my brother's
Yeah.
friends, they went to Madras. The rest of
Yeah,
my
yeah. Uh-huh.
friends from Ramaya also ended up going to Madras. But what ended up happening was I messed up the day of the JE,
Oh,
right?
I see. Huh? Uh,
So I obviously ended up getting a rank which no one expected I would get. Uh,
oh.
so so the expectation was probably I would be in the top 10, 15 from Ramaya. I was probably the 70th in the 100 who
Uh,
got through. So it was whatever it was, right? But at that point in time, we then looked at.
mm,
I think I was going to get chemical in Madras, or I was
uh-huh.
going to get manufacturing in Kharagpur. Was I going to get chemical or civil in Madras, and I was going to get manufacturing or mechanical in Kharagpur,
Mhm.
and uh, and it just seemed like mech and manufacturing is you go and fill it in the,
Mm.
what's it called,
J
uh,
counseling. Counseling?
the
Yeah.
counseling,
Mhm.
right, where you go and fill your options, and then
Yeah.
so that happened, and
Mhm.
as fate would have it, I landed up in Kharagpur,
With chemical, right?
and I'm no, no, I was in manufacturing. I was in
Oh, you were in
manufacturing.
manufacturing. Okay.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I was in manufacturing in Kharagpur.
Mhm.
So, and I was extremely unhappy about it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
To the point where I took all my Ramaya books with me to. Uh,
Oh, first year you wanted to prepare again.
I was extremely like the day the J
Oh,
results came, I
uh-huh.
locked myself in a room for like 2 3 days. My parents were they were very afraid, "Ki, boss, this guy won't do something stupid." Uh,
Yeah.
it was a massive downer, right?
Mm.
But the good piece is this, right? So I mean, I think we're touching it a little early in the
Yeah.
conversation, but I think KGP is one of the best things that ended up happening to me. And I'll
Mm.
tell you why, because in
Yeah.
in Madras,
Mhm.
everyone, like I have a brother who is brilliant,
Uh-huh.
right? So I've always grown under the shadows of uh,
Mhm.
like like all through my 10 years in school, most people in Hyderabad who would know us would
Mhm.
know me as Aditya's brother, not as
Uh,
Anish.
mhm. Mhm.
So if I went to Madras, I think it would have been similar because a lot of
Uh,
his friends were anyway in IT, and so it would have I've just grown in that,
so
and in
you
Kharagpur
wouldn't have, yeah.
I was this kid. No one knew me, right? So it was amazing.
Mm.
For the
So it's
first
like
time in life, there were no.
yeah, you got a chance to develop your own identity because of going to Kharagpur rather than Aditya's brother's identity. Like you could be your own. Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I thought that was just remarkable. That was just
Uh,
like, I think I would have, I think I really bloomed in Kharagpur more
mhm.
than at Ramaya or at Little Flower.
Mm.
I mean, I did well at both those places, but,
Yeah.
you know, you know, the place where I thought I explored who I was,
Mm,
tried many things out,
mm,
didn't have to sit in this cocoon of, you know, you must do as well as your brother did type
mm,
nonsense was
mm,
really Kharagpur, right? So the good piece was at least what that
mm,
taught me in life is look,
mm,
you might have a certain plan for yourselves in life
mm,
where you're
mm,
locally maximizing,
mm.
right?
Yes, yes.
But life might have a plan for you where it is trying to globally maximize for you. So what I
That's such a
thought
great
was,
statement. Yeah. Like
so
you are
what I
trying
thought
to have
was
a local maxima while the life is like, hey, I have a global maxima which can maximize your full potential.
absolutely, right? So I don't think a lot of stuff that happened in my life would have happened if I had gone to Madras and not to Kharagpur. And I was super depressed about going to Kharagpur. Like honestly,
Mm,
like I took my JEE books back with me. I was trying to prep again for JEE
mm,
again. And I hated the place when I got in, right? I was this
mm,
Hyderabad metro bred kid. A
mm.
pizza was 30 minutes away, and you get into Kharagpur. I used to be extremely scared of lizards, and
Uh-huh.
Kharagpur had a lot of lizards, man.
Uh-huh.
So I got into the washroom in, I think it was JCB Hall.
Uh-huh.
It was JCB actually. First year we were
First
in
year. Uh-huh.
D block
Uh-huh.
JCB, and I Falaknuma, the train gets you in at 6:30. I get into the washroom and I see this big black lizard
Uh-huh.
just behind the door, and I just
Uh-huh.
screamed out.
Uh-huh.
So it was like that was the start. Then I got into my room. I hung
Uh-huh.
my shirt up. It used to be
Uh-huh.
these whitewashed walls, right?
Yeah.
So my shirt was full of like that white tuna. And then they said, okay, why don't you guys go to what was it, Tech Market
Mess.
and go buy
Oh, tech
a
market.
mattress,
Uh-huh.
right? And so my expectation of Tech Market and an IIT was this super high tech, nice place. So we went in and I was like, what is this place? This looks
Yeah.
like, I'm in some village.
Uh,
So, so my expectation of Kharagpur when I got in was a very different from, you know, and look, for counseling, I went to IIT Madras, which
mhm.
was obviously seemed a little better. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
situated in a city and, all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
but when I look back now, I think life had a better plan for me than I had for myself, right? And it kind
Wow.
of played out very well, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool. So tell me like now, so looks like the KGP did not meet the expectations at the very start. Now you're trying to adjust. You are like, I'm here. Like probably you gave up the idea of changing IIT after 3 months, or you continued on that for the entire year, first year.
So I think what worked very well for me was the wing in our first year,
Mhm.
right? So it was an amazing collection. I think the good thing about Kharagpur is you get people from everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Unlike Madras, where it is probably more Andhra type folks, or
Mhm.
Bombay, where it is more Rajasthan and that belt.
Yeah.
Kharagpur was people from everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
I had folks from like across the
Mhm.
country in the wing, and I thought it was a we had a great time as a gang, right?
So first
And
year,
so,
yeah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, so first year, so the wing was amazing.
Huh.
The second thing was, I ended up joining robotics as I don't know what first years used to be called, but there
Pacha.
was some interview process, something, so I ended up joining that. That was a lot of fun, so
Uh,
I thought that was the first time in life when I was managing or organizing something and not just being a academic guy, right? So
mm,
I was typically the usual academic. My parents also wanted me to do a PhD and go
mm,
to the US. Usual
mm,
Telugu dream,
mm,
as you would expect.
mm,
So it kind of I thought through the first 6 months in Kharagpur, this a lot of stuff opened up in life, right? The whole robotics was a very interesting place.
mhm,
It felt like a place where if you had good ideas, you could do stuff,
mm.
right? No
So,
low politics,
mm,
very low politics, unlike the
mm,
rest of KGP, hall
mm.
politics and all. Robotics is always extremely
Yeah,
low politics, right? So
yeah. Mhm,
that was great. Amazing wing. We had a amazing time as a wing. Some of those pieces I thought really, made me open up and not hang on to the let's go to Madras thing as
Mm.
much.
Got it. So very quickly, kind of like with the help of friends and all, you are like, okay, well, looks like this is a good plan. Like, so first year itself, you kind of moved into this that, okay, this looks like the right place I am. Then you got into tech, robotic society, got into it. Then how was the time at RK Hall? So second year you got into RK and then your journey in RK, how was that?
Yeah, RK was again a super interesting
Mhm,
place, right?
mhm,
I think RK was the first time I learned that politics and having a godfather matters.
mhm.
It's a fact of life. Kharagpur
Yeah,
is
yeah.
about politics and Kharagpur is about having godfathers. I didn't have any,
Uh-huh.
right? So second year was a little bit of understanding, हाँ भाई, matlab, life is just not only about, you, it is also about things around you and some of
Uh-huh.
that.
Mhm,
But RK was again, I think KGP, I call KGP a land of opportunities,
mhm, mhm,
right? Because if you wanted to do something in Kharagpur, you could do it,
mhm.
right? And RK was also that, right? For the for in my fourth year, I was the SSM at RK.
Yes.
We got the hall renovated,
Mhm,
and it was just that you had to think that you wanted to get the hall renovated.
mhm,
And then you sent a bunch of emails out. Some alumni replied. Vinod Gupta was in town. He said, "How much money do you want?" I was like, "What?"
mhm.
Then we sent him like two proposals with
Uh-huh.
local contractors, 25 lakhs
Uh-huh.
and 30 lakhs, saying, "Look, we've got two contractors. This is all that we need to do. It's going to cost 25 lakhs and 30 lakhs," which at that point in time was a decent amount of money. And
Yeah.
then he came back saying, there is this better contractor I know. I will get all of this done with him. So it
Mm,
was
wow.
just
Yeah.
RK was a, and the RK Ilu is just amazing.
Mm,
It's a time when, you just get to, and RK Ilu is, I feel, I don't know how Ilu is today, but
yeah.
back then it used to be this amazing place where everyone bonded strong,
So it's like
right?
a bringing a community together. It's like a great way to bring community together.
Yep. And the good thing about RK was also mixed wings.
Hmm.
So unlike the rest of the halls where you would all be with your batchmates, in RK
Uh-huh.
we always had mixed wings, right? We
Third
would
year, fourth
have
year.
third
Hmm.
and fourth years and sometimes fifth years
Yeah,
stay
yeah.
together. And I thought that also changed, that also was a very different experience from just living with folks in your wing,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
RK was amazing. Like RK and
Hmm.
Kharagpur, I thought the number of things I ended up trying in Kharagpur, whether it was setting up the ESL,
Hmm.
few people know about this, but I also had, I had a patent and I had two international papers when I was
Wow.
in Kharagpur. I did a bunch of, I had a 8.5 GPA, but I spent a lot of time doing research projects right from my second year. So
So you
Kharagpur
are
was this place where
already setting a very big example here. You're saying 8.5 plus SSM, and then you had some research paper, you had a patent. I think, Anish, you're like, crazy ambitious. You're an overachiever already through what you shared.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I think
Uh-huh.
it was just that the good thing about Kharagpur was
Uh-huh.
if you wanted to do something, things would happen for you. Right? As a
Mm,
second year, I walked into a bunch of profs' rooms in the MEC department and said, look, I want to do some projects.
mm,
And surprisingly, people gave me, right? Like
mhm,
Professor Asimava Roy Chaudhary, ARC.
mhm.
He actually said, okay, fine, here's some piece of work. Why don't you start with this? And
Wow.
surprisingly, he would give me time at 9 o'clock in the evening.
Mhm.
So I would go meet him at 9 in the evening, once a week, saying here is
Mhm,
what progress happened,
mhm.
and we did some really interesting work. We were trying to do
Wow.
this thing on building a bone using 3D
Mhm,
printing, and this
mhm,
was 2008, mind you.
mhm,
So and we were trying to lay it this way.
mhm.
3D printing generally works this way, right?
Yeah, yeah,
But in a bone, when you're trying to build a bone, you want to, the strength has to be such.
yeah.
So you were trying to lay it this way. It was called fused deposition modeling.
Mm,
And we actually ended up getting a patent on that in a
wow.
year and a half, 2 years. So, and as a second year,
Mhm.
all I did was just walked in and said, look, I want to do some interesting work, right? And
Yeah,
people
it's
were
kind of
happy to give
yeah,
you
it's
work.
very interesting that, a lot of these opportunities exist. It's just that someone needs to initiate it, you know. You just gotta like go out of your way. I mean, I think this is like a very good message for people in KGP who are like, hey, I'm not able to find an internship or a job or anything. And here, if you take a little bit of initiative, you got a patent done just by a little bit of effort, you know. So it's like, and then it builds your profile even further. So it's just a little bit of you have to go out of your way, out of your like normal process.
And Kharpur, I can give you like many. Another incident I should talk about is so we were running in robotics, right? And we
Hmm.
realized that if you wanted teams from outside Kharagpur to participate, and
Hmm.
this was just a year before even Kshitij started, right?
Hmm.
That you had to go train people in colleges outside so they could come and participate in a technical event like robotics. Simple,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So we then realized that okay, we have to run these workshops, and we said okay, we'll go run workshops, right?
Hmm.
So we went to KIT, we went to a bunch of colleges in Hyderabad, we went to a bunch of colleges in Calcutta,
Hmm.
uh, and and suddenly next year, from having zero external participants, we suddenly had like 20 teams coming the
Wow.
next year, right?
Uh,
The next year we had 300. We had
nice.
a thousand people participating and 300 teams from outside. Like half of Kshitij used to be robotics in 2005,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
I mean,
So
for a long time, robotics was a big part of like Kshitij.
in our
Yeah.
first year, robotics had all of 20 participants, 5 teams.
Wow. Very cool.
So it was just so every time this thing that kept repeating for me was if you want to do something, try it and things will happen.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of
So
true. Like everything you want to try there. I mean, I don't know, is this the brand KGP that is like big enough in every region that you take an initiative and then everyone is like, yeah, I want to support it, you know? Like the energy comes together in KGP in some form where it makes things happen.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Another example I can give is how the ECEL got set up, right?
Yeah. Huh.
So we were in robotics and these teams from outside campus
Uh-huh.
needed things to build, right? You needed motors, you needed
Mhm.
all that stuff, microprocessors,
Mhm.
etc., etc. And even we would get it in Kharagpur from one shop in Tech Market, where that guy would get it from Wellington Road in Bombay,
Mhm. Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
So we said, okay, let's set up a hobby kits company. This was
Mhm.
2005,
Mhm.
and I realized that we had no clue about how to set up a company or
Mhm.
how to raise money or any of that
Mhm.
stuff. So we said,
Mhm.
okay, then let's set up an e-cell
Mhm.
to teach us how to set this up. That's how the idea of e-cell came up.
Wow. Uh-huh.
And then obviously we were in iLabs, which was run by Professor C.S. Kumar. So
Uh-huh.
we went to him and he said, look, I don't have money for all this.
Uh-huh.
I don't have money for an e-cell. So KK, who was my wingy at that point in time, was
Uh-huh.
doing a
Uh-huh.
project under PPC, under
Uh-huh.
Professor PPC.
Uh-huh.
So we went to Professor PPC and Professor PPC said, this is a good idea. I will fund it. And
Wow.
that's how the e-cell started under SRIC of all places. It was not in the Gymkhana. It was not in, it started under SRIC.
Mm.
So, so I can give you like many incidents through my four
Yeah.
years in KGP where it's just like a land of opportunity. You want
Yeah.
to do something, you can put a nice team together, and you can get stuff done. So yeah.
Very cool. Now, let me, now you talked about this experience of e-cell and robotics. Now, you ended up starting your own company at graduation, right? So now my first question is like, how did you actually said you don't want to take a job? I mean, because, or did you
I,
take a job?
I should correct you. I did take a job. I did take a
Oh,
job. I didn't start out of campus. We started 2 years out of campus.
uh,
So I joined ITC out of campus.
mm, uh,
That's an interesting story
yeah.
again. So I generally joke around that my first startup was probably the eCell. Actually,
Uh-huh.
KK and mine, both our
Uh-huh.
first startup was probably the eCell.
Uh-huh.
Uh, and the eCell actually did a lot of interesting stuff for us, right? So
Mm,
one was when we were setting up the eCell, you had to inspire people to build. So we had
mm,
to get good alumni to come and speak, right?
mm.
And it so happened that Arjun Malhotra,
Oh
was
my God.
visiting
Huh.
campus,
Uh,
I think a month after we set up the eCell,
uh,
and Professor PPC got to know that Arjun is coming. So he said, why don't you guys also talk to him?
mm,
So we met Arjun, and then the next day he said, look, okay, we'll do a talk in Netaji, right?
uh,
And super inspiring talk. And
uh,
Arjun is, of course, phenomenal, right?
yes.
So,
Yes.
And after the talk, the three of us, KK, Arjun, and me, went
Yeah.
to the tech guest house and we chatted for another hour, 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing guy, right? So, and both of us knew कि ऐसे कुछ करना है life में.
Mm-hmm.
So there was this inception that happened in us saying we have to start up sometime, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then of course, out of campus, I had an MIT offer
Mm-hmm.
to do a master's there and a job from ITC. But by then I had realized कि, look, I like building teams. I'm good at tech, but that's not like what gives me a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up not taking MIT and I ended up choosing ITC, which was a very contrarian decision at that point in time. But again, I think life had a plan, so it kind of
Yeah.
worked out.
Even now, I mean,
Uh,
I think I would say it's like a very contrarian opinion to just like have that, hey, I'm not gonna go to MIT. I'm actually gonna take a job at ITC because I it might give me more exposure to be starting something of my own.
I don't think I was that far in. A
Huh.
lot of stuff in life happened to me, Atal.
Uh-huh.
When I got out of campus, I don't think I was in a place where I was sure I would start up in 2 years. It was
Mm.
definitely not like that.
Uh-huh.
I was this ITC at that point in time had this very ITC has always had a great CSR angle to it. It's a great company.
Mm. Mm.
It's an amazing place
Mm.
to go to, and I felt that I would be better as a manager building teams than
Mm.
as uh, a techie doing research,
Mhm,
which was
mhm,
the MIT option. So,
mhm,
and that conviction came to me from the 4 years in Kharagpur, where I had done
mhm,
both sides and I realized this gives me more fun than
mhm,
this, right?
mhm.
So it was that. Then ITC happened. I worked there for a couple of years. And then the question in my mind that I couldn't answer was the impact question, right? I had 4 years of very impactful 4 years in Kharagpur,
Mm.
whether it was the ESL, whether it was robotics, whether it was getting RK renovated. So I had a pretty interesting 4 years in Kharagpur. And
Yeah,
in
yeah.
ITC, although I was doing well, I was getting promoted every year. I had 3 job changes in 2 years in Kharagpur.
Mm.
Sorry, in
In
ITC.
ITC. Mhm,
This question of, what am I really doing here was
mhm,
like kind of bugging me, the
mhm,
question of purpose. And uh, so, so that, and KK was also in Microsoft Research. He was also publishing patents one after the
uh,
other. He had a
uh,
small, for every patent you get a cube
uh-huh.
in, uh, in Microsoft, and he had a cube of cubes.
Oh my God.
So, but his thing was, look, nothing I do actually
Uh,
gets into real code. Like
ah,
nothing
I
gets into
see.
like real production, right? So
Uh,
we met 2 years in, and both of us were kind of frustrated with some parts of our jobs. And we
uh,
said, look, I think we should start up now, right?
uh,
So that's kind of how Capillary ended up happening in 2008,
very cool.
while both of us graduated in 2006.
So, I mean, if I remember, if I understand you, it was incubated initially in STEP, or there is some form like KGP connection of this. So you went back to KGP after 2 years, like after
So
ITC?
when we set up the
Uh,
ESL, when we
uh,
set up the ESL in 2006, we wanted to do two things. We looked at, so the 4 years before us, before
uh,
the ESL came up in Kharagpur, there were only two startups that came from campus,
mm,
right? So in my batch, we had 10, that came out, but all of them came out in like 2007, 8, right?
mhm, mhm,
Nothing came out in 2006. They came out a
mm,
year or two later.
mm,
So our understanding was two parts. When we thought
mm,
of what should the ESL do, the
mm,
first was inspire people, so get others
mm,
to come and talk.
mm,
The second was the reason people didn't start up was a lot of parents wanting kids to have secure jobs.
mm.
Like it happened even with
Yeah.
me. I had to tell my parents that, look, if I start up and if I don't get a job, sorry,
Mm,
if it doesn't work out,
yeah.
I can go back and sit for placements in Kharagpur. So what we
Uh,
did when we started the ESL was this deferred placement
okay.
option.
Uh,
So if you started up within 2 years of leaving Kharagpur, and if
uh,
your startup didn't work out, you can actually go back and sit for placements again.
wow. Even after 2 years of graduation, you can come back. That's crazy. And especially even if you took a first job from KGP already.
Yeah, yeah. So it was called the
Wow.
deferred placement
Uh,
thing, and we had worked it out with TNP.
uh,
PPC had made a few calls to get it done.
uh,
The
uh,
second thing that the ESL
uh,
did was
uh.
PPC went and got a grant of 5 crores from DST.
Mm.
So unlike any other resell of any other IIT, you would get a 15 lakhs for starting up from Kharagpur. So you also ended up solving the initial, seed
Capital.
funding problem. So when we started up in 2008, we went back to PPC again,
Uh-huh.
and he obviously gave us the 15 lakhs to go start. So as
Mm.
part of that, IIT got 3-4% of Capillary. So we were
Mm.
technically quote unquote incubated in Kharagpur, uh,
Mm.
but we were not in Kharagpur. We were in Calcutta
Mm.
and in Bangalore.
Mm.
Kharagpur did we in 2015 they sold half their equity for about $1 million, uh, which went back. There's still Kharagpur still owns another 0.5% of
Mm.
Capillary. So there is
But
still probably another few $1 million still left at
so
Kharagpur
KGP
will
in a
make.
way Kharagpur made like this turned out to be like a great bet for KGP perspective. Like they put in like 10, 15 lakh and now they're like getting probably like 3 million or 4 million, right? 3 million.
Yeah, yeah. They'll
Yeah.
easily make 3-4 million out of this. They've already made
Yeah.
a million, so and it was a loan, right? So we
Uh,
paid the 15 lakhs back also. If the company did well, then
mhm.
it you had to pay it back. If the company didn't do well, you write it off, which was a nice
Uh-huh.
way to do it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so that's what I thought. I thought when even the ESL had some uniqueness to it.
Uh-huh.
That ended up Splash Math came out of there. I can list like 4-5 companies which
Mm.
took that 15 lakhs. There were 100 companies in the next 6 years that actually ended up taking 15 lakhs each from Kharagpur. Now, not all of them are great outcomes,
Mm.
which is the usual startup and the VC story, but I think there are at
Mm.
least five which have done well in
Mm.
that first 100 cohort. I don't know what happened after that though.
Mm. Very cool. So now like let's go into this journey. Like you got connected to KK again, that KK, let's do something, got the money, and it's still like you are like more of not having a lot of experience, and I'm gonna go more into like building a SaaS from India. But like how was that initially? Or, like what were you building at Capillary and how did you that turn into a company like what you have today?
Yeah, I feel in so we were really two kids out of college,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
When we
Mhm.
started up in 2008, I was with ITC at the head office in Calcutta. KK is from Cal,
Uh-huh.
so he finished 2 years at Microsoft and then he moved back to Cal. So we actually started in Calcutta,
Mm.
of all places,
Mhm.
right? So, and because we didn't really have a big idea on what we wanted to do, we
Uh-huh.
kind of went the investor way of saying, pick two sectors that are doing well, do something in
Uh-huh.
between it, and as those sectors grow, you will grow with it, right? So we didn't
Interesting.
have this $1 million idea key, we want to do this, right?
Uh-huh.
So we spent about 6 months uh, reading up a bunch of stuff and figuring key sunrise sectors in India, retail and mobile, right? This was 2008. And we said
Uh-huh.
we'll do something in between these two.
Uh-huh.
We then went and spoke to everyone we knew in retail, everyone we knew in mobile, right? Which was the
Mm.
KGP network, the ITC
Mm.
network, the Microsoft
Mm.
network.
Mm.
Probably about 40, 50 meetings
Mm.
between August of 2008 to December of 2008,
Mhm.
where, we would just land up and say, look, we're two kids from IIT.
Mm.
We can build good software.
Mm.
KK was amongst the best techies you will ever find,
Yeah.
right? So I was not, I was never a software guy.
Uh-huh.
And we would ask these people saying, look, what are the problems that you're having currently? What can we solve for you,
Uh-huh.
right? And we started on August 11th of 2008, a month before Lehman Brothers tanked. A lot of
Mm.
your generation won't know that recession, but it was a pretty bad recession, right? It lasted four
Mm.
years, 2008 to
If you
2012. It
compare
was
it
a
with right now, how would you say like what we are experiencing, or like there is nothing happening right now in comparison to what it was there, or what would you say?
It is supposed to be the worst recession after 1930s,
That
right?
time,
So
what happened? Yeah. Hmm.
2008 to 12 was genuinely known as it was a pretty bad time, right? But we
Hmm.
didn't see much of it.
Hmm.
We didn't have a bad time. It was just that we knew stock markets were crashing,
Hmm.
retail sales weren't happening,
Hmm.
etc.
Hmm.
And a bunch of these conversations, right, of the 50 conversations that we had, about 30 folks spoke about the same problem that customers aren't coming back to stores.
Hmm.
Sales are down. It is Diwali, but still we are not able to sell. So if you can get our customers back to stores and make sales happen, we will buy. And that's how we ended up
Mhm.
building a customer loyalty company, right?
Ah,
So
okay. Very interesting. So
otherwise,
you, huh? Yeah.
otherwise, there's no way in hell we would have dreamt up about building a customer loyalty company, right? So we were just constantly listening to what the market was telling us,
So
right?
you
So
are saying the problem was that customers were not coming back again after leaving. So that's where you found. It's not that customers are not coming, because if customers are not coming, then you focus on marketing and sales company. But here you developed a loyalty program because the customers were not returning.
correct, correct.
Mm.
So it was so capillary kind of happened that way, right? So
Huh,
we didn't write a line of code for the first 3 months. We
uh-huh,
tried a few random stuff out, but unlike the usual startups at that time, when you would write a lot of code, you would build this product out and then go to market. We did totally the other way around.
uh-huh,
We spoke to a lot of people saying, "What is your problem?" And we narrowed it down to this, and we then did something smart. We What happens as an entrepreneur, right? No one wants to tell you a no.
uh-huh.
So everyone will tell you, you build this and come back. I
Yeah.
will use it. You build this and come back. And most
Mm,
people take 2 meetings. They say, "Oh, that big guy said he wanted this," so they start building.
mm,
Right? But
mhm,
in India, we never taught to tell a no.
mm,
Even as kids, our no is a
mm.
half yes,
Yeah.
right? So we realized that look, there's something wrong in the feedback we were getting as well. So we
Mm,
then put a filter of saying, okay, how much will you pay us for this?
mhm.
Because when there is a commercial conversation, life gets real,
Yeah.
right? So and that's how we finally zeroed in saying, okay, this is a problem which people are willing to pay for. And
Mm.
those 50 conversations we had, 30 people had this as a problem. 4 or 5 people were actually willing to put a number to this problem.
Okay, I see. 4, 5 people were
So
like, hey, yeah, I will pay this much if you can bring me back the customer.
correct that,
Hmm.
we will pay you whatever $50-$60 per store per month,
Mm,
if you're able to do this, which was, I thought, and that was when we actually started writing code, and we
mm,
knew who our first 5 customers would be. So our
mm,
first customer went live in Feb, which was a part of Future Group. These
mm.
two small brands called Urban Yoga, and our second customer was Aarti Birla Group. Our third customer was Indian Tenant. So within 6 months of nailing down that this is a problem which people will pay for, we were at a
Mm.
thousand stores live with us.
Wow, that
So there
was
was a
so
lot of
quick.
value in
Uh,
there was a lot of value in not writing code on day one and writing code from month 4,
uh-huh.
because then you were not tied to an idea. You were
Mhm,
you were doing a lot of deep exploration on which problem should you build
mhm,
on,
mhm. Yeah.
right? So
So
that
Anish,
worked well for us.
you kind of slowly mentioned, like, you just like focus on the formula that, hey, look, let's look at two of the sectors that are growing, and you build a company in the middle of those two, and you would grow with those sectors. If I look at right now, and looking at all the world right now and the companies and the industries coming on, if you have to bet, or like you are trying to understand how the trends are, looks like you kind of spotted that trend. What is that trend now that you would say, like, these are the industries which are growing, and this is where at the intersection you can build great companies?
Yeah, I feel the common unanimous trend is AI,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, uh, and I think like how probably the wave we caught in 2008, Atal, was the cloud wave,
Mm-hmm.
right? For the first, cloud was beginning to happen, and we were probably amongst the first who did loyalty on the cloud. So
Mm,
you didn't have a large upfront cost of implementation. It was a small per store cost. So you could really try amazing pricing for a recessionary environment. A try and
mm,
buy is an
mm,
amazing pricing for a recessionary environment,
mm,
right? And the cloud led to a lot of great SaaS companies coming out of India,
mm,
right? I feel you are now sitting at that whole, I would say, more Gen AI wave than the AI wave. Uh,
mm,
I think I think now is the time when all entry level white collar jobs will be taken over by AI in the next 7 8 years,
mm,
right? So
mm,
pick any industry you want. Pick any industry you want. Look at what are the entry level white collarish type jobs. can they be taken over by a AI workflow built for
Mm,
that?
mm. So you pick
And
the
it can be any
you
industry. It could be like, it could be a dentist shop, it could be a physiotherapy shop, it could be a retail store, it could be a call center. Like pick anything, entry level white collar jobs can be done by AI now. So it's
So
just
tell me, like,
about,
yeah, this is very good. So I mean, now you're talking about like, okay, entry level white collar jobs of knowledge workers is going, which is, let's say, entry level was someone who just graduated from a college, right? So this job is taken by someone. So now what should the college grad be doing, like in their college time? Because now the gap, the skill gap for them is even bigger now for if they are looking for their first job.
I think I don't have an answer to that question,
Yeah.
honestly. I'm
Uh-huh.
not a career counselor
Uh,
or anything on that side. I
yeah.
don't have an answer to that, but look, I think there's going to be a lot of software built to replace this entry level white collar job, right? I
Mhm,
mean, there
mhm,
is going to be a lot of software need to be built for replacing that data analyst in a retail as compared to data analyst in a consumer goods company,
mhm,
as compared
mhm,
to data analyst in a bank, right? Or similarly, a support agent, or similarly a delivery guy for a different kind of CRM use case or a loyalty
mhm,
use case, or there is going to be uh, a lot of that, right? I feel like we have some copilots live now on the AI
mhm,
side, where
mhm,
earlier if it took you someone, you had to train someone, they would log into your tool, they would like then configure a promotion or pull out a report.
mhm,
Now you just type in simple English saying I want to configure this, it gets done,
mhm, mm, yeah.
right? So there's going to be a need for a lot of software to be built. In fact,
No.
if you ask me,
Uh-huh.
look, we have like over the last 18 months now, we have roughly grown our engineering teams 50%,
Wow.
right? And and we are a 15-year-old company, right? So
Mhm,
it's not that we had small engineering teams, we had large engineering teams, we've still grown them, right? So I do think there is a lot of software that has to be written to get this done. And I also do think that not everything will be done by software, which is I
mhm,
think where the India play is amazing. Because
mhm,
I still think you will have this case of 80% can be done by AI, but there is
mhm,
20% which will still need people, right?
mm,
So can you think of the offering as a solution and not a software rather as a service, right? Can you think of it as if you had 10,000 tickets coming to you, between AI and like 10% of the human resource you needed earlier, we will
mhm,
deliver the same outcome. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that is definitely uh,
mm,
happening and will continue to happen in that
mhm,
space.
mhm.
Yeah.
So you're saying like Gen AI and pick any industry, look at a white collar job, and you see how you can replace that job or the work that was happening, and that is what is Gen AI is gonna do. Now there are like higher level jobs,
And
and I
and
mean,
and
huh, go
and
ahead.
pick 4 5 good customers that you will build with.
Mm,
Like speak to 50 people, figure who are the 4 5 smart people in that, see if this problem you're solving resonates with them, see if they're willing to pay for it.
mhm,
Build with customers is what I'm saying.
mhm,
So AI, then pick a entry level white collar job, then pick your first, speak to 50 people, pick 5 customers who really want to solve this problem and
mhm,
who are smart and will pay for it
mm.
and build.
Got it. Very cool. So you are like, hey, customer research first. You are like, hey, don't get into building the code. You gotta first understand what the pain points are, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you need to, like in our case, the first
Mm,
set of customers that we picked were, I mean, I don't want to typecast and I'm
mm,
not a very high pedigree guy, but
mm,
you know, the first set of customers, from the people we had at Atibullah Group or the people we had at Future, were all smart people, right?
mm,
IIT-IM type background
mm,
or IMT or tier one, tier two. So you knew
mm,
that these people were smart. You knew that these
mm,
people would have tried to solve this problem in a different way. Or if they're telling you that this is a problem for me, it's not like that they're also co-investing with you, right?
mm. Yeah.
So you need people like that to build. I
Mm,
definitely think what what I generally see with a lot of startup founders is they just keep building, 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 and then you keep
Mhm.
fixing bugs in something which no one has ever used.
Mhm.
So like unless you have enough customer interest saying, look, you build this, I will pay for it.
Mhm.
They're willing to pay for a small POC.
Mhm.
I feel unless you have some of that ticked off, you should not write a line of code.
Mhm. So now I have a different kind of question here. The cost of building has come down a lot with Gen AI. Now, when it comes to like someone able to build a software or a POC, like it used to be if like it was month, now it is days. Now, one approach is like you first do all the market research and you just like do not build and you just like just like build only if the customer is ready to pay for it or like is interested. But there is someone out there, and the world is definitely more about like, do not tell me, show me, right? There is this mindset that, hey, a lot of people tell, a lot of people do marketing even when they can't build or they won't build or they have not built. So there is this whole thing that when the cost of the building is so low, how about just show it to the customer and then get in their engagement, instead of like being just talking to them.
Yeah, look, I've done sales for most of my last 15 years
Uh-huh.
in Capillary, and the sales process is a very simple one, right?
Mm,
You never start a new sell with saying, here's my software, look at it.
mm,
You always start a sales conversation saying,
mm,
what is the problem that you're having? You first figure, is there a need,
mm,
right? And if there is a need, meeting two or meeting three is when the product demo or the stuff happens. Meeting one with
mm,
any customer is basically saying, okay, we play in the broad customer loyalty space. Are you having any problems in this space? Like, what are you struggling with? What is working for you?
mm,
Sales is a consultative approach, Atal. It is not an
mm,
approach of, you know, hey, look at my software. It's
mm,
great.
mm,
It is not that. So meeting two is when the demo happens, right? And meeting two will probably be 2 weeks down
at
after your
least two
first
weeks time.
meeting.
Mm,
So and
got
I think people are very fine if you tell them that, look, like the approach that we took, right? Like I went and met people at ITC, ex-ITC alums,
it.
Kharagpur alums, KK went and met people from Microsoft. And our approach was a very simple one. We would say, look, we are two kids from IIT, we can build good software. We want an hour from you to understand what problems are you seeing today.
Mm, mm,
We were not trying to sell them anything at all. And I can
mm,
tell you that approach works. If you were to write to a KGP alum saying, I'm starting up, someone wrote to you, say,
mm,
I'm starting up now. I want an hour to pick your mind on something.
mm.
Most KGP alums will say, yeah, he's a junior from college. I'll
Yeah,
spend an hour. Big deal.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's like more about like first, and just like have a conversation, try to understand the problem exists, then only go into the mode of selling or what you can build. Yeah, it's
See, if you
very.
hit building a company takes 10 years
Yeah.
plus, right? So
Mhm,
and unfortunately, if you don't hit the right problem early,
mhm, mhm,
if you don't figure a large enough problem that you can hit early, you will end up building a services company where, you will solve five different problems for five different people. It won't be
mhm,
I feel it's worth spending that 6 months, 9 months in figuring, what is that niche which is large enough, which you can go and solve, which
mhm,
smart people are willing to pilot with you.
mhm. Got it. Very cool. Now I'm gonna go. We kind of went into this whole AI and how this is the industry where people can build right now. Now going back to your story, with Capillary, you started off, got a few customers, and then, I mean, if I understand, you didn't raise a lot of money, or did you end up raising more after that? Like, why did you decide to go do this way, like building Capillary? If I understand, you did not raise a lot of money, or did you raise a lot of money?
Well, we were building, right?
Uh-huh.
So when I look at 2008, we raised the 15 lakhs we actually raised 10 lakhs from Kharagpur,
Uh-huh.
was the first. I think it came in August, September of 2008.
Uh-huh.
And KK and I had saved up enough in our first 2 years. We had saved some 6, 7 lakhs.
Mhm.
And interestingly, we had told each other that we will not take a lifestyle cut. right? So
Mm-hmm.
we continued to live. I used to spend 25, 30,000 rupees a month at that point in time. I continued to spend that. I didn't take a lifestyle cut to get to, you know, and in the 10 lakhs, we went and hired 5 interns from Kharagpur. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and we generally had a pretty nice brand name. KK and I had a good brand name in Kharagpur. So we got good people, right? So our
Uh-huh.
first product was built between 5 interns from Kharagpur, 2 interns from Dhirubhai Ambani, DIICT. We used to pay them 5,000 rupees a month, which was like peanuts, but we got good stuff done, right? So
Wow.
and uh, and so the 10 lakhs lasted us a good 9, 10 months,
Mm-hmm.
right? We were almost running out of money. This was June
Mm-hmm.
of 2009. I took a
Uh,
train back to Kharagpur, went my Professor PPC again, and I said, we need some more money.
uh,
So he said, okay, I can give 5 more lakhs.
uh, mm,
And by then, by now, we had like 2, 3 customers live. We had Future
uh-huh.
Group live,
Uh-huh.
with two very small brands. We
Uh-huh.
had Aarthi Birla Group live with a brand called People,
Uh-huh.
and Indian Terrain was just signing up, and we had a fourth brand called Numero, which was Numero, which is this jeans
Mm-hmm.
brand in the north,
Mm.
right?
So they were paying these customers?
Yeah, all of them. Look, we never did anything free. It was
Uh,
always 2,000 rupees per store per month.
uh,
It was
good.
a different matter that Future had 5 stores with us.
Mm,
Aarthi Birla Group had 5 stores. It was not much money, right? It was 10,000 rupees, 15,000 rupees per month, but it was money, right?
mm,
Because
mm.
what happens is if you have to make a payment in an enterprise, you have to go get your boss also to sign off.
Yeah, yeah,
So then there is joint ownership between, not only you, but also that person who is piloting with you,
yeah, yeah.
right? So we had like serious committed customers, right? So,
Mm,
and the good piece was it was a real problem you were solving for them. We knew
uh,
that if these 5 stores for Future worked, we would get another 100. We knew that if
mm,
the first 5 stores for uh, Aarthi Birla Group worked, there were at least another 1,000 stores we would get,
mm,
right? So,
mm,
and our pilots usually used to be 2, 3 months.
mm,
So we were running out of money, but we knew that there was a lot of traction happening in the business, right?
mm,
People were wanting to pilot, people were wanting to try. So
mm,
PPC gave us another 5 lakhs. This
mm.
was this is June of 2009, right?
Uh,
And we were starting to see momentum, right? You had the
uh,
best brands in retail wanting to work with you.
uh,
The pilots were going well. And the beauty about pilots going well is as the pilot goes well, people come to you and say, please roll out to more stores now. You don't have to sell.
yeah.
Pricing is already agreed, ROI is working, right? So around October, and again, I think if you're willing to be open, like
Uh,
we moved to Bangalore in July of 2009 because
uh,
we realized that Calcutta, you can't build anything. Calcutta works backwards.
uh,
At that point in time, it used to be like that.
uh,
And our first customer was in Bangalore. Our first 2 customers were in Bangalore. Our third customer was in Chennai. Our fourth customer was in Delhi. I was this
uh,
traveling sales guy who would keep
uh,
traveling around in trains.
uh,
Um, and we moved to Bangalore in July of 2009.
uh,
And once we moved to Bangalore, we would attend all these startup events. There used to be Head Start, there used to be Startup Saturday, there used to be
mm,
all that stuff, right? So every Saturday
yeah,
we would
yeah.
land up at one of these places.
Uh,
And in September, it was one of these events. I think it was a Head Start. I don't know if Head Start exists even now. Where there was this VC from Qualcomm, Karthi, who's a good friend now. Uh, he came up saying, "Look, we're running this Q prize competition, where the winner gets 50 lakhs.
uh,
And the submissions are tomorrow. You have to submit tomorrow, right?
mm.
And if you win the international round, then you get another 50 lakhs, right?
Wow.
So in 6 countries, the winner wins 50, and then so to our luck, we were there that day. So the next day we sent a PPT out.
Uh,
We ended up winning the India one. Because we had
wow.
traction, right? We had real
Uh,
customer traction. We had 1,000
yes.
stores that had signed up to go live
Uh,
with us. We came second globally. So another 50 lakhs came in. So we actually, other than this Kharagpur pitches, we never ended up spending time trying to raise money.
wow. So yeah, so you got money from KGP, and after that you got these awards, which are also grants, right?
No, no, they get equity as well. It's like
Okay,
a
they also get
convertible
equity. Uh,
equity. So, and
and
Qualcomm has
are
been a great partner through the
Mhm.
years. So we ended up winning Q Prize, the first version of Q Prize in India, and
Mhm.
they did a lot of PR around it. So
Mhm.
suddenly we had a lot of angel investors reaching out to us saying, can we invest in in you guys?
Wow.
So we actually ended up raising $500,000 as our first angel, which was a lot of money back then,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
we then, uh, but no VC was interested in us, to be
Mhm.
honest, because
Mhm.
no one believed that you could build software for India from India, right?
Software for
Uh,
India from India. Yeah.
right? Which is
Mhm.
kind of what we were doing, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And so no VC was interested, but a lot of angels saw
Mhm.
the, we had a bunch of retail CEOs
Mhm.
who put money in us. So the
Mhm.
industry was believing in what we were building, and they were putting like 50 lakh checks, 40 lakh checks. So we ended up raising my sisters, KK's sisters, so a bunch of people, with the friends and family, etc. We ended up raising 500,000, right?
Okay.
Then next year again we went to VCs, or we
Mhm.
got a lot of inbound from VCs. Actually, we didn't go to anyone. We had this rule that we would meet two new people every week between KK
Mhm.
and me, and
Mhm.
usually it would be investors,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And investors ask smart questions. They will not give you money easily, but they will ask you smart questions. They'll make you introspect. So there were good questions being asked, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
even the next year, we almost ran out of money again the next year. Uh,
Mhm.
because now, we were lifting off, so we started hiring, we
Mhm.
started going to campuses, etc., right? So we
Mhm.
ended up spending about 500,000 through the next, I think, 12 months.
Mhm.
And then again, we had a lot of inbound from VCs, but there was no agreement on honestly being I think they were right. Building a large SaaS company focused on India is very hard.
Mhm.
Uh, but there were more angels willing to back us up. So we raised another $1 million from more angels.
Wow.
So we ended up raising $1.5 million between 20 people. Uh, Ended up diluting about 20-22%
Mhm.
of the company
Mhm.
without raising even a dollar from VCs, rather than
Wow.
Qualcomm, of course.
Mhm.
So we've raised a lot of money, Atal. Like I
Mhm.
would say for our, back then, half a
Mhm.
million dollar seed was unheard of. A
Mhm.
$1.5 million seed was so definitely unheard of. Our
Yeah.
Series A was a $16 million Series A, when Series A's usually used to be $1 million,
Mhm.
right? So we've not been very capital efficient as a company.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Got it. Very cool. I think now, I think as over years, the Capillary has grown into a big company. And I mean, KK and you started it together. Now, KK, I know I'm going to be recording with him soon. So he is nearby in Bay Area. I mean, how did that? I mean, you both were like close, and at some point, probably like KK is like, hey, I want to move to the US. And you did continue working together, but now are you still working together? But because I think he works somewhere else, right? So how did that relationship change, and how were you be like, no, I want to continue this?
Right. So we were wingies as well. We were
Yes.
both Tarke, seat of mid.
Hmm.
So obviously, I don't think I would have started up without KK,
Hmm.
in that sense, right? So, and we had a amazing ride the first 4 years,
Uh-huh.
right? So I was awesome at sales. KK was brilliant at tech. So it was just like it just worked, right?
Hmm.
So we would attract amazing talent. It was
Hmm.
a recession, right? So anyone who was bored of their corporate job,
Hmm.
we would get amazing people join us. Whether it was
Yeah.
Anand, whether it was Piyush, it was
Hmm.
Sridhar, like lots of, and in the KGP ecosystem, though, we would get people like unreal, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm. Hmm.
it worked amazingly well. Then 2012 happened. We ended up raising the largest Series A in India. It was like $16 million.
Hmm.
Uh, we were burning 5 lakhs a month at that point in time. We ended up
Oh,
raising
wow.
60 crores as
Uh-huh.
primary. $12 million is primary, and each of us also took some money out. Right, each of
Hmm.
us took $500,000 out, which was a
Hmm.
lot of money back then.
Hmm.
So things changed quite
Uh,
drastically at that point in time. This was
uh,
2012. Sequoia and Novus came in.
uh,
I've always been lucky to get very good investors who trusted us, right,
hmm.
through the last 15, 16 years. But what happened at that point in time was, from being this frugal company, where we would value every dollar, we would, do all of that stuff. We suddenly had 60 crores in the bank, right? We had 100 years of money,
Uh-huh.
technically, right? We were burning 5
Yes.
lakhs a month. So you had
Hmm.
100 years of money. And personally also, we had a lot of money now,
Hmm.
right?
You're
So I went and bought
rich guys, business good.
I went and bought a Beamer, so life had changed, right? I bought a house
Yeah,
for
yeah,
my parents, I bought a Beamer, and all that money gets your head, right? Money
yeah.
gets, and we were what? I was 28,
Uh-huh.
I was 27, 28.
Hmm.
So money does get to your head, right?
Uh-huh.
So, and I thought the next 2 years were a lot of bad behaviors on my part.
Hmm.
Uh, there was this definite big ego boost that we have arrived, you know, and the world also starts celebrating you, right? So we
Uh-huh.
were this total unknown startup till 2012, and then suddenly we had raised a $16 million. SaaS was starting to happen in India. We were at a 2 million ARR, probably amongst the top five SaaS companies in the country.
Hmm.
So it was just like a lot of and we then went from saying, okay, we were doing India, Middle East, Southeast Asia at that point in time,
Hmm.
to opening up like the UK, US, Australia, Hong Kong,
Hmm.
South Africa, like name it, and we were just opening countries like it was unbelievable, right? So
Hmm.
we ended up stretching the team, the company very, very thin.
Hmm.
And when we opened US, the general right suggestion from outside the company was that, look, one founder has to move,
Hmm.
right? So KK moved to the US.
Hmm.
Southeast Asia was starting to do very well for us. So I moved
Hmm.
to Singapore, and Ajay continued to run India.
Hmm.
Like before this, all of us were based in Bangalore, and
Hmm.
I used to travel around a fair bit.
Hmm.
From here, we went to this place where we were in three different places,
Uh-huh.
and hence, and when you're in a fast growth company with founders in different places, uh, misalignments and wrong communication is a feature, is not a bug.
Hmm.
And so over the next 2, 3 years, so I would keep taking these calls, KK would keep taking these calls. We would never be on the same, we would never take the effort of calling each other up and saying, मैंने ये decide किया है इसलिए, तुमने ये
Uh-huh.
decide किया है इसलिए, right?
Uh-huh.
So, and we had suddenly gone from this 70, 80 people company to a 400 people company in the next 18 months. We'd got a lot of
Hmm.
senior people from, like our VP of engineering came from Yahoo, our VP of professional services came from Cognizant, our VP of finance came from Coke, our VP of HR came from this company called Rambus. So senior people, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
they were building their own silos. And here we had two people at the top who were deciding but not talking to each other.
Yeah.
It was total chaos. It was
Uh,
just total chaos, right? So,
uh,
and I had this big ego at that point in time.
uh,
So 2 years down, KK walked up one day and said, "Look, you've become too much of a bully. I can't work here anymore, and I'll move on." Right?
mm,
Uh, so that happened. We then got an exec coach for me, and of course, life has changed since. But I think these were all good learnings, right? I mean, they were.
yeah. I cannot believe how good you are at just accepting. I mean, I think you're a very reflective guy if I look at it. The way you just explained everything and where it is. Because I mean, when you are here, you usually meet KK and you're still good at able to keep you are very good with relationships, and relationships is like a long-term thing in life. So it's amazing to see just like the way you express this, this is what happened and this is where we are at, and this is how I improved. That's very cool.
And we great friends now. We at least
Yeah.
speak once every couple of months.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, I, but life has its own plans. No? So
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I,
So I think Anish, now I think this is like there is a part of this journey which is I think we are getting into like 2010, this whole series raise and all. I think one part of your life that I know about is like you spend a lot of time in solitude, like maybe go on hikes or backpacking, like this nature thing experience that you have. Like, how did that came about, or like, was there something always in you about like spending time solo, or just like as building company grew more and more, you were like, okay, I have to take care of myself.
So I think so let's play this out, right? So this was 2012, 13. It was
Uh-huh.
not always like that. I was not someone who always took care of health
Mhm.
or things like that. If anything, I think from 2005 to 2020, I think I would drink every day. Socially, not
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
but something or the other, right? Like, and I
Uh,
come from Telangana where my dad and my father-in-law also won't accept if I don't sit with them and have a drink when I'm at home.
mhm.
So it's just like, but basically what happened was, yeah, it was 2014,
Mhm.
KK moved on, the company
Mhm.
almost ran out of money.
Mhm.
So we ended up spending 10 years of money in 18 months. Sorry, 100 years of money in 18 months.
Wow.
We we ran out of money by the end of 2014,
Mhm.
early
Mhm.
2014, we were almost out of money.
Uh,
KK moved on, Ajay also moved on,
uh,
you know, and we ended up saving the company. We ended up shutting US, all those international markets. We just
yeah.
focused back on India, Middle East, Southeast Asia. The business had grown from 2 million to 6 million in those 2 years.
Mhm.
But the fact was we were burning like 1.5 million a month at 6 million. Didn't
Wow.
make any sense. Didn't
Mhm.
make any sense. So we took a lot of cuts.
Mhm.
Thankfully, the existing investors doubled down again.
Mhm.
It was a decent round. It was not at the crazy valuation that we had raised in 2012.
Mhm.
Not at the crazy multiple. It was at a more real multiple this time. But we
Mhm.
still raised
Mhm.
money. We got the company back into shape.
Mhm.
Uh, I think we were burning very little money. We were probably at a 10% EBITDA loss
Mhm.
by the end of that year. The business was continuing to grow well,
Mhm.
right? So, and we had shut a lot of this, right? We had shut US, UK, Australia, all that jazz was all
Mhm.
gone. It was an
Yeah.
Asia business, it was retail.
Mhm.
And so by end of 2014, was the first time when I was out of shock mode, right? I was out of the shock mode of you have to get the company right. The company was now back in good shape.
Mhm.
And I think it was around Dashera, Diwali, October, uh,
Uh,
when I was feeling like, look, the company was in a great place in 2012. And,
mhm.
I had this amazing team. Both the co-founders have moved on.
Mhm.
And when two co-founders move, a lot of people also move,
Mhm.
right? So, and unfortunately, the way that split between KK and me got portrayed was a little bit of tech versus sales.
Mhm.
So a bunch of our good engineering folks left at that
Mhm.
point in time. A
Mhm.
bunch stayed. I'm
Mhm.
actually very grateful because a lot of people also stayed. But
Mhm.
when you have people with whom you built the company for 5, 6 years,
Mhm.
every single person like that leaves, and as a founder, you have this. You have a terrible night. You can't
Yeah.
sleep that night. You're questioning this thing, boss. Like, how did I fuck up so bad?
Yeah.
Sorry, I shouldn't
Yeah.
have used the
Yeah. No, it's
word,
all good.
but
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
and so it was October, and I was just in this pretty bad place mentally.
Mhm.
That look, I've really messed it up. The company was doing amazing,
Mhm.
and we always gave people ESOPs in the
Mhm.
company. Now we kind of had from raising at 16, 17 times revenue, we ended up raising at 9 times revenue. So there's also that thing in my head that, oh, the company is not as valuable as it was earlier. I have also
Mhm.
messed up people's ESOPs,
Mhm.
all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
So that was the first time I felt, okay, look, I need some solo time. I need to
Mhm.
take some time out of work.
Mhm.
And I actually went and did a solo trek.
Mhm.
So this was Harki Dun,
Mhm.
and I went with India Hikes. So I didn't know anyone else on the trek, and it was a 5 day hike.
Mhm.
I think about a 6, 7 day hike, probably 5 days, and going up and coming down and all that stuff
Mhm.
to Rishikesh, and I thought that was a good experience because it just helped me sit, reflect back. There was no phone connectivity,
Mhm.
all that stuff.
Mhm.
And at that point in time was probably when I like was the first time I said okay. Then I came back. My wife has been a terrific support through the last 15 years, 12 years now.
Mhm.
And she said, look, let's go to Rishikesh for a yoga retreat. Right.
Mhm.
So the last week of December, we both headed off to Rishikesh for 2 weeks for a teacher training type course.
Mhm.
She's
Mhm.
phenomenal at yoga.
Mhm.
Um, and in that week, so what they would do is through the day you would have like asanas and stuff,
Mhm.
and in the evening for an hour
Mm-hmm.
they would make you try different kinds of meditation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So this was 2014 December,
Mm-hmm.
and um, and and I had this big guilt feeling in my head even after the
Mm-hmm.
trek and all that stuff. Uh, I think what was burning me up was I had a lot of good people who had good equity in the company who had spent so many years,
Mm-hmm.
and I had this guilt that the value of their equity is probably not as much as it could have been had we run it very well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and this would keep coming back to me,
Mm-hmm.
and through one of those meditation sessions, this
Mm-hmm.
thought came up. I didn't indulge with it. It went away,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in some senses, there was this small incident of healing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that thought didn't come back as often as it did.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I ended up meditating, and like uh, all the junk in your head really came down.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you
Yeah.
still hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can
Sorry,
hear
there's
you.
a
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And then I realized that this is something super awesome,
Uh,
right?
mm-hmm.
So now you can't keep going to Rishikesh all the time
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah.
meditation. So we figured a nice yoga retreat close to Bangalore called Shreyas.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever my pressure cooker whistle would like get to peak, I would
Mm-hmm.
go spend 2 days in Shreyas, and they again have they make you do yoga nidra, chakra,
Mm-hmm.
lots of different kinds of. So you would kind of get temporary relief for a month or two, and
Mm-hmm.
then you'd again come back, again prayer cooker levels would go up, and then you'd again go back and come back. But it was working for me, right? The good piece
Yeah,
was,
yeah.
look, I think this focus on, I'd put on a lot of weight as well. I'd gone from
Uh,
75 to 90 kilos.
mm-hmm.
Uh, I, and again, I kind of lost that weight. I started running
Mm-hmm.
to lose weight. So somewhere in 2014-15, I realized, ki, look, if you are in this long haul of building a company, I think taking care of yourself is also super important, right? And that philosophy over a period of time has led to, like, I look at life in four quadrants.
Mm-hmm.
So there is the personal side, which is your physical and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is the professional side, which is the company, career, money, etc., etc. That part. Then there's friends and family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like school friends, KGP friends, all
Mm-hmm.
the my cousins, etc. Right? There's probably about 20, 30 of them
Mm-hmm.
who I try and keep in touch with at least once a quarter for sure, right? Like
Wow.
a
Mm-hmm.
good call.
Mm-hmm.
So and then there is the spiritual side,
Mm-hmm.
right? So which is it's spiritual and community and all of that part, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I feel I feel it's immensely helped me to measure myself every quarter on how am I doing on all four of these,
Mm-hmm.
and not just on saying how well is the company doing and
Mm-hmm.
what is how how much is the money I have and what are the assets I have, or which was
Mm-hmm.
probably the way I looked at life before, like I feel having this clean view on a 4x4 and then saying,
Mm-hmm.
look, how is once in a quarter just sit down and say what could I have done better over last quarter on all four axes,
Mm-hmm.
I think has really helped me.
Got it. So it's like you look at more from holistic life or holistic way of in these four quadrants rather than like, hey, if like the value of just money or like being more rich changed a lot from those years, like after you saw like let's say some of your friends left.
Yeah, not only, yeah. I mean, I was both mentally at a bad place. I was physically obese. I was, some of my best friends had moved on. I had
Mm-hmm.
not cared to keep in touch with a lot of people, so
Yeah.
I really started keeping in touch with people in 2015, right? That was the time when I
Mm,
went back on holidays with a bunch of friends, things like that.
yeah.
So,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of things change. A lot of things change in like just how you looked at life, and what things were important maybe before that were different, but after that it like a lot more things became like, or like you started looking at life from a different lens.
Yep. And I
Yeah.
think the point I want to make here, right? Beyond the
Uh,
first 10, 15, 20 crores in life,
mhm,
especially if you're in India, money is useless, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and look, so if the valuation of the company is going up and your ownership in it is going up and you're now suddenly worth like $50 million,
Mm-hmm.
it's all useless. All the You have an extra zero which is only creating more pain for you in life than anything real, right? And I
Yeah.
genuinely feel that look, life is about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Life is about how you feel in your head. You
Mm-hmm.
know, life is about I have always derived a lot of satisfaction by being useful to people where I don't have any commercial interest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's so even now I have this rule that I will spend 2 hours a week meeting random people, right? And now it's more people asking me for stuff than me asking them for stuff, but it's fine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel once you change your view on it, then life's more balanced, right?
Yeah, it's like what you're saying is like, just the value of that wealth after a point, it doesn't change the quality of your life or the satisfaction that increased in wealth brings. And I mean, I think you're also bringing in like about a fact like about spirituality and how you look at spiritual. Like, what do you think about like spirituality in this sense?
Yeah, so purpose has been a big question in life for me for many years,
Uh-huh.
right?
Uh-huh.
Whether it was starting Capillary up, whether it was taking that call on going to ITC and not
Uh-huh.
with MIT, etc., right? And uh, and life's been very kind to me, right? I've had my fair quota of a lot of success in life,
Mhm.
right? And so what I've seen is, that okay, getting into IIT would be one, then getting the best job or getting to an MIT. So you would keep having these things where you would think कि ये हो जाएगा तो मैं तो बहुत खुश हो जाऊंगा life में.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Mhm.
in English, like
Yeah.
if this happened in life, I would be super happy. And then
Mhm.
that would happen in life for you.
Yeah.
And then you would be like, there is this next thing in life now. There is this next thing in life now, right? So somewhere I think by 2014, 15, I realized that, all of this external stuff
Mhm.
it's just a passing phase, right?
Mm.
It's not going to deliver permanent happiness. It's not going to deliver permanent satisfaction. It is not going to like make you happy, and I
Mm.
wanted to be happy, right? Like all of us, I wanted to be happy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and so at that point in time is when I started asking these harder questions on,
Mhm.
like what will make me happy,
Mm. And
right?
you found like helping other people is one way that makes you happy.
Yeah, but again, look, yeah, I like, I think I'm usually a good problem solver. Uh,
Mm.
so when people have problems, I feel sometimes I've given good answers,
Yeah.
right? So let's put it that way. But I'm not tied to the idea of मेरे को यही करना है life में, right? I don't want to be a
Mm.
counselor or I
Mm.
don't want to do any of that type of stuff. I like my 4x4 axis.
Mm.
But the good piece was, look, as I started digging deeper,
Uh-huh.
right? So, like, I think the next 4 5 years of from 2015 to 2020, I was flirting around with this idea of meditation and
Mm.
I wouldn't say spirituality.
Mhm.
Spirituality really ended up happening only in 2020 uh, for me. Like, and again, look, I keep going back to Shreyas, all that stuff, right? But I'd still not. And the company went through a pretty bad phase in 2018, 19, 20. What
Mhm.
happened was we again raised a good amount of money,
Mhm.
uh, and money comes with expectations, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
So we got Warburg on board, and the thesis at that point in time was building a multi-product play focused on
Mm.
Asia retail, right?
Mm.
What I had totally got wrong was the macro,
Mm.
right? That you can't build a large SaaS company out of India
Mhm.
focused on India or just Asia markets is what I had got wrong, right? So we
Mm.
reached 20, 30 million in ARR and then we stalled,
Mm.
right? And when you stall,
Mhm.
you're now doing everything you can do, right?
Mhm.
You're
Mhm.
trying new things, you're
Mhm.
spending more money, you're probably working more hard when you're stalled than when you were growing normally.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
Definitely.
and so we had these 2 3 very bad years
Mhm.
where we were growing at like 20%, And we were burning a ton of money because we were trying everything under the sun.
Hmm.
And I was again blaming myself for all the mistakes I did. We did a acquisition that failed,
Yeah.
and I was just in this very bad place
Uh,
mentally. When a friend actually, it was my 35th birthday.
uh,
Uh, we were all in Goa, like
uh,
nine of us from school,
mm,
and we were talking about how life has dealt with each of us, high on a
yeah.
bunch of stuff.
Mm,
And when my turn came, I said, "Look, I think life is going to be all downhill from here."
uh,
I was 35, and I said, "Look,
uh,
I think life is going to be all downhill from here." And one of them actually, who's a VC, by the way, so Karthik ended up saying that, "Look, I think you're thinking all wrong. You should go do a Vipassana."
oh, I see.
Right? So, and this is Karthik is someone I would trust with my life, right?
Uh,
So, I this was December end. I went for a Vipassana like in Jan end. The first slot I could get, wherever I could get, I just went. And that was when I realized, Atal, that your mind plays a lot of games with you.
mm,
And for most of our lives, we think we are our mind. Right?
mm,
There is this constant chatter that keeps happening in your mind on, "Hey, you did this wrong, you did that
mm,
wrong, we could
yeah.
have done this better." You're never in the moment.
Mm,
I mean, and I think the 10 days of Vipassana was an amazing eye opener for me of how
mm,
badly my mind had screwed me up.
mm,
And how it was important to, if a thought came, not to engage with it, you know, s- let that thought go. Like,
mm,
if that thought is screaming at you saying, "Look, you really messed up," it's okay, let it go. Don't engage with it. Right? So this whole thing of, I think spirituality happened to me in 2020, right? Which is
mm,
when I realized that, look, the only thing that can give me happiness is myself,
mhm,
and is by maintaining a good distance from my noisy mind. I have a brilliant
mm,
mind, but it can be
yeah.
extremely noisy and it can like really screw me up, right?
Wow.
So since then, I do a Vipassana every year. In Capillary, anyone
Mhm.
can go and do a 10-day
Wow.
beyond their PTOs. We've had like 25, 30 people who've we have a as part of the company's mission is two-pronged.
Mhm.
One is to help our customers engage better with their customers, basically build the best loyalty company globally out there. The second part is to help our teams have a more meaningful life. So
Wow.
we actually run a bunch of these inner peace retreats. We've had over 100 employees join at least one inner peace retreat or the other. We have a meditation room in office. There's a 3 to 4 slot when some of us sit and meditate together. So I do think it has significantly helped me. It has significantly helped half the management team has gone down a Vipassana. Not
Wow.
compulsory.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a lot of
Yeah.
value in that side.
Mm, mm. Very cool. No, I think definitely the way you approach business is very different than a lot of other things. So, first of all, I think we went through a lot of your story, and I think there is still so much that we can go in, and maybe we're gonna plan out because I think even at every part, because there are so many sides to it. Spirituality is one. We can go deep into it. For now, I just want to say thank you so much, Anish, for being here and discussing your story. We're gonna do another one maybe down the road where I can deep into each part separately because I think just the way you look at the world now, I think that has a lot of value for the world, especially for someone building a startup or anything doing. So thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it, Anish, and thank you.
Thanks, Atul. Take care.
Yeah.